In this lecture, what we shall be doing is hosting a domain which was registered elsewhere with another name registrar, hosting it on another host, a different host. For example, we have registered a domain already with Namecheap, and we are going to try to host it on Whogohost. Now, this process requires connecting both domain and hosting together through the use of something called a DNS or DNS records. The DNS records tell the DNS server where to locate the files for a particular domain name. So to do this, we first go to your host. Depending on the host, you could start this process at the domain name end, or you could start it from your host. But this time around, we are going to start it at the host. So the first thing we do in the host is we'll get the name server information, which will now go back to the domain registrar and impute. Now the host is Whogohost, the domain registrar is Namecheap. These are two separate companies and two separate websites. So to get the name servers for a Whogohost server, first of all, log into Whogohost, click on my account, and it takes you to the account dashboard here. So on the account dashboard, you click on hosting services. When you do that, it will show you all the servers that you have hosted with them. Here we have just one, so we are going to go ahead and click on it. So for Whogohost, when you click on that and look through, scroll down a little bit to where you have hosting information, you see different things here. You see the domain that is already associated with the host, the server name, and other information, including the name servers. The name servers are what we're interested in, which are these two. So name servers could be IP addresses, they could also be domain names or subdomain names. And they normally start, not all the time, but most of the time you can have, there are two name servers that are usually default, but you can have more than two. And they'll usually have a configuration like ns1.something and ns2.something or IP addresses. So what we really need here are just the two name servers. So once we know we can get this information, we can leave it open here and hop on over to Namecheap. Namecheap, when you get to Namecheap, which is the domain registrar where you've registered the domain, when you go to Namecheap, log into your account, and you see a list of all the products you have. You have to go over it and locate the domain name that you have registered, which you want to host on the other host, which is Whogohost in our own case. So here we are seeing the domain name resaledude.com, which is what we want to host with Whogohost. But if your domains are not showing, you can come to the left hand side of the menu and click on domain list. So I'm not going to do that because our domain is showing here. So what we'll just do, go ahead and click on manage. So when you click on manage, you get to a place where you can change different settings and different configurations for that domain name. But what we want to change is the name server information. So just scroll a little bit and look for it. So this is name servers. Once you locate the name servers, you come over to the right hand side. You can see under name servers it says Namecheap basic DNS. Now when we just registered this domain name, we registered with Namecheap, and in the process Namecheap associated the domain with their own domain name records. But it's something we can always change. So Namecheap basic DNS there is telling you that this is the name servers here are for Namecheap, but to change it to the name servers of your own host, you come here, click on the down arrow, and then select custom DNS. So once you selected that, it brings out spaces where you can now enter the new DNS records that you want to change to. So go back to Whogohost, copy the first name server there, NS. You don't need to copy the IP address. Go back to Namecheap, paste it, come back, copy the next one. If you are given more than one, you have to copy all of them, but there are only 2 spaces here. If you need extra spaces, click on add name server and a new space will come up where you can enter a 3rd name server, but I'm not going to use that, so just ignore it. Then once you've entered the custom DNS, you come here and you click on save. Okay, so once you have changed it, now the DNS records, they don't always take effect immediately. Not all the time, but most of the time it does. But if there are delays, it means you have to wait longer. The maximum time is 72 hours. That's what you would normally be told. And if you see this message here, it says please allow our system a couple of seconds before switching your name servers again, which means if you have just changed this, try not to change it immediately again. So once we've done this, we have changed our name servers, we have to go back to Whogohost and do the rest of the procedure. Now the next thing you do is, when you are back at your host, you need to now add that domain record as an add-on domain to your hosting server. That's something you can easily do from CPanel. So if the host you are using has CPanel, you log into your CPanel. Here, Whogohost, to get to CPanel, will come to here, come to the menu on the left hand side and click on login to CPanel. Now this is CPanel. As mentioned in another lecture, CPanel is a kind of platform or interface that many web hosts provide for their clients to monitor and manage their hosting accounts. So under CPanel, you look for the section on domains and then you locate add-on domains. So this is it. You can either do this or you can come up here and search for add-on domains, add-on. So, and that's our icon. So click on it. Once we click that, we get a new page that now asks for the domain that you want to host. So you type it. What we are adding here is resaledude.com. So you enter that and you go ahead and click on the next field in the form. So you notice here that it says subdomain or FTP username resaledude and document root resaledude. FTP is a way that you can upload files to your server. So it's something we are going to be treating in another tutorial, but for now we can just leave these options default as they are, and select a password to use for the domain. Make sure it's a strong password. A strong password should have both capital and small letters, and maybe 2 numbers and a symbol. So once you do that, click on add domain. Okay. So the message here is the add-on domain resaledude.com has been created. If you wish to manage these domain files, you can do so in File Manager. The FTP account resaledude has been created. So what this tells us is that we have now successfully hosted the domain name resaledude.com on Whogohost. If you want to go ahead and start uploading files or doing other things on the domain, you can click on this link here, which is File Manager, and it takes you to CPanel, direct to the folder that holds the files for that domain. So each domain on a hosting account, each domain has a folder that all the hosting files for that domain reside. So for this one, while creating it, we specified that it should put those files under resaledude.com folder. That's the folder we are looking at. Another way to access this place is to go back to your home, and if for example you want to install something on this new website, you need to come to home. Let's say we want to install something like WordPress, for example. You can click on WordPress, and then if we click on install now, we can see that there's now an option for our new domain name. So if we want to host anything on the new domain, we'll select resaledude.com. That's that domain. Now this section, this screen, is called Softaculous. In another lecture we've talked about Softaculous, but Softaculous is a kind of interface under CPanel through which you can use to install various scripts that you can see here. So the exact details of using Softaculous are explained in a different section, but this lecture is basically on hosting a domain registered with one registrar on a separate host, which we have just done. So the next thing we need to do is to confirm and see if actually our domain is working. So we can go ahead and type resaledude.com and see what comes up.